Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Reasonably Effective podcast brought to you by myself, Uncommon Fossil, and 10 Types.
Yep. And today we're talking about some cards that aren't very good, and we're
A way to
fixing.
sell it.
Yeah, well, no, but we're gonna make them better. We are the ones to save the Pokemon TCG's bad cards. Now, the cards we're talking about aren't all like completely terrible, but they're not that good. And so pretty much, and this was my idea. I'll say. But I like custom cards. I think they kind of like custom cards, and
Yep.
it's exactly what it sounds like when you make your own cards. But we're gonna take cards that already exist and kind of rework them a little bit, change them, improve them, and do some interesting things. So
Yeah,
so
or less interesting, but hopefully interesting.
yeah, we have not revealed what we want to do to the other person yet. So yeah, but Uncommon Fossil, you have 6 cards. I have 5.
Well,
So you
I
want?
have 5.
Oh,
I
you have
really have
5.
5.
Okay, I thought you had
I
7.
have a 6 because it's for comparison.
Okay. So
But anyway,
so anyway, you want to go first with your first card?
sure. I don't know if we're going to alternate or how we're working it, but we'll see. So my first card is a stage 1 grass type. We know grass type Pokemon are dominant in the TCG now, and it's Roserade. Hopefully I'm saying it right. 120 HP stage 1. It is
From Lost
from
Origin, right?
Lost Origin number 15 if you're got a score sheet at home. And 120, like I said, HP stage 1, single prize. It's got 2 attacks that are designed to go together. And they do in a sense, but it's very underwhelming, and I think it's unplayable the way it is, and just would like to make it viable. Right? To me, I'd like to make it usable, but not overpowered. So the first attack, Poisonous Whip for 1 grass. So that's not bad. The cost there, it does 30 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. Now that's not getting you very far with that attack in and of itself. The idea, though, is then you somehow survive the attack, which it seems highly unlikely. And then for Grass Colorless, so you attach a second energy from hand. Then you use Assassin's Rose. The second attack, you now do a whopping 60 damage. And if your opponent's active Pokemon is affected by a special condition, you poisoned them with the first attack, and they were not able to get rid of the poison counter, of course. Now you do another whopping 60 to one of their benched Pokemon for 2. So for 2 energy. So and don't forget the poison that built up and the 30 damage. So you've got what, 60 to the active plus 30, 90 plus what poison, what twice, right?
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
so
So
you've done
massive
110
damage
to
here.
the active and 60 to a bench Pokemon over 2 turns. And assuming your opponent wasn't able to switch out of the active
Well, wasn't it
or
120 to their active because it's poisoned into their turn, poisoned back into your turn, and then after this turn, it's poisoned into their turn again as well.
so 3 poisons, I guess. Yeah, you're right. So well, 60. So yeah, so 120 total for the active, which of course takes out whatever your opponent's playing in the active spot. So
Like their
anyway, it's
Roserade,
obvious.
like their Roserade.
Exactly. It's designed for the mirror, so it's very underwhelming with it, and I think you'd agree with that, correct?
Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty bad. We see a lot of cards kind of like this that are theoretically kind of interesting that often have like 2 attacks or something that works like together, some combo, but
Right.
the combo is really like not good enough. So
Right, and the way it's designed, because the second attack is 2 energy, and assuming you're not accelerating energy, and it's difficult to, I think, accelerate grass. One of the Pokemon I considered was Fortress EX, which does accelerate grass, but that obviously makes most decks worse. So I'm not discussing that. But today, other than this, you're manually attaching once per turn, so you have to poison with the first turn, and then you have to attack with the same Roserade the second turn because you have to attach again, and that's just so unlikely to happen. So I think a couple of things. First off, if assuming it stays, now you can poison like in the game now, like with Brute Bonnet with a tool. So that's a thing as well to keep in mind. So one way to do it, if you just wanted to poison without using the first attack, right? You could poison elsewhere, like I said, with Brute Bonnet or something, but then you're setting up a new attacker pretty much every turn. So Assassin Rose, the second attack would have to be for 1 energy first off, which is one way to kind of look at it. Reduce that attack cost and increase the damage too. I mean, you got to get it to be at least, I think, 90 active, 90 damage to even be a consideration. I think that's less interesting though, because like you said before, the two attacks are designed to work together. So I want to use the two attacks on the Pokemon. In which case, the first attack needs to then have some other condition that gets applied to your Pokemon. Probably, I would think that they can't retreat. So that takes away one of the ways to get out of poison. They can always evolve out of it. And I think that's fair to have that. But now they have to play to not be poisoned. They need to have a switch or something. And of course, you still can get knocked out, which is a decent chance. But we need to have at least an increased possibility that your opponent's Pokemon stuck in the active and still poisoned, so we can attack with the same Roserade turn, the second turn. That's kind of where I'm going with this card.
Yeah. So what's it like? What's it gonna look like? So that's like 30. You can't retreat poison. That's like not that good. I mean, that's
No,
pretty similar to Scoville and EX, which is what's that? Is that 20 burn? And
that's
oh, it
stage
doesn't
two,
do any
correct?
damage. No, also no. Scoville and EX is stage 1. It burns.
Oh,
It
with
doesn't
the
do any
EX. Okay.
damage. It's one
Hmm.
colorless, and they can't retreat. So it's a little different. Um,
Yeah, and,
but
and obviously the 30 is not a lot of damage as well, but it's a setup attack, so I'm not going to worry about that actual number on the damage there.
yeah. Wait. So what's your final card looking like? Because this card doesn't sound that good.
All right, so I look a couple thoughts I had. One, you could give it an ability on it to poison your opponent's Pokemon, so then you don't have to use the first attack into the second attack. You could give it an on play ability because you're always set up your second Roserade. So on play, you make your opponent's active Pokemon poison. That would be okay. Get rid of the first attack.
Yeah.
That would be all right. That would work, and then I would increase the Assassin's Rose to, you still have to drop it to 1 energy, and is 90 enough? Probably not.
I
You
mean, I
make it
feel, well,
120.
90. That's just like Radiant Greninja, which would be pretty solid, I think. If it was 90
Yeah.
for one, um,
Hmm.
that's pretty strong.
So the question is, would you rather have? It probably should have an ability. That's what I'm thinking now. Drop the first attack, make it an ability, non-play ability, because that makes it a little tougher to pull off. You can't just have one sitting on the bench, but you're having to set up every turn. You have a basic, you're evolving the benched one every turn, and then you're attacking. So you're getting knocked out every turn, so you're promoting the evolved one after you're knocked out from the bench to the active, and you have to bench another one so you can evolve it. And you have this chain of things. You're doing poison 90-90 every turn, and as long as your fragile chain doesn't break, you kind of you're doing something, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's 1 energy, probably one grass, 90, and on
Yeah,
play you poison. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that's a interesting concept. And I think that would make it actually like pretty all right. Because right now I've literally never seen anyone play this card. Apparently I own 5 copies of it. And apparently it has a full art with Gardenia on it. Wow.
look at that. It
That's
does. Yeah,
that's
and
that's rough.
and I and I have a
I mean, it's
copy of
not
that
like
one
bad. It
too.
looks like fine, but Gardenia isn't the best card I had. So
No, there are
Gardenia is
Pokemon's
great.
investing more time with this card into the art design than the playability of the card, obviously.
Yeah. So is there anything else for Roserade or?
No, no, I think that's a proposal that I think makes the card usable, but obviously it's far from broken still, which
Yeah,
is where
yeah,
I'd like it to be.
yeah. We'll see where mine end up. So next we got Weir Deer. Oh, I misspelled it. Weir Deer. There's only one Weir Deer, I believe, in the game. Single prize Weir Deer. And this one is going to be the one from. Why is there so many different versions of it? Anyway. Oh, it was a promo. Anyway, so it's Weir Deer from Astral Radiance. It was a pre-release promo as well. But it's a pretty cool
Yeah.
card. And so, well, it's kind of cool. So it has 140 HP, stage 1, 2 retreat, psychic type.
Hmm.
And it's Darkness Weak, fighting resistance. Its ability, once during a turn, you can draw a card, and that's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. Just right. Just drawing a card is now it's not great just drawing one card, but it's certainly as long it needs to do more than just that though.
Yeah, and it's certainly very much outclassed by Kirlia or Lightbard or whatever. So then
Yep.
there's the attack here, extra sensory, 2 colorless, 40. If you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, this attack does 80 more damage. So, 120 for 2, it's certainly not bad, but it's awkward to pull this off. There are ways to do it. There are a number of cards to disrupt your opponent's hand, but it's kind of not so great.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking this through, comparing it to Dodrio, another stage one, let's say here. 100 HP, so it's a little less, right?
Yeah.
But that
Well,
doesn't
it's
really mean
much
that.
less as you'll.
It is. The HP on Weirder is actually pretty nice, but it draws one card. That's good. It puts a damage counter, but then that actually sets up the attack. So it's one energy for the attack, and it does a lot more damage once it gets going. So like compared to Dodrio, Weirder is pretty unplayable, I would say.
Yeah, Weir Deer is not so good. It's a card that I don't believe I played in standard. So yeah, so obviously though there's like two main ideas here. There's the drawing
Hmm.
cards, and then there's the having the
Yeah.
same number of cards in your hand as your opponent. So I've
Right.
reworked both the ability and the attack here. First,
Okay.
but I think I did it in an interesting way and a balanced way.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the ability I changed it to once during your turn, and this is also the first one I wrote. So like the text is better than some of the other ones I got lazy on. But
Okay.
once during your turn, you may draw two cards. If you drew any
Okay.
cards in this way, your opponent must draw a card.
Okay. I That's not what I was thinking, but you could do that.
What were you
Um,
thinking
I was
with this
thinking
with the ability?
to with the ability, you could draw a card, or you could force your opponent to draw a card.
Yeah. So this draws you
Which
cards because I mean I think that would be generally that's weaker. I mean forcing your opponent to draw a card could be useful, but generally you're going to have a bigger hand and you want like cards in your hand. Um, So I feel like
right?
you'd almost always choose to draw a card in that situation if you did the you choose.
Probably. Well, I mean, you're trying. I'll wait to see what you do with the attack, but I assume assuming you still want to get the that hand size to be the same. Sometimes you might want to actually get your opponent to boost their hand size as well. So having that flexibility, I think, is nice. But you get two, your opponent gets one. It also then becomes an option for like a mill deck.
Yeah,
But I don't
exactly.
think
And that was partially what I was thinking. Not entirely certainly, but that was a thought that was with this. Although it's not like that good mill because it's milling into their hand as opposed to into their discard, so not as good.
no. An option like that would be nice late game when they get to just a couple cards and you want to keep them from Ionoing to prolong things.
Yeah, or you could like hand trimmer them or the new Xeroxic supporter. Some interesting options there. But then the
Yeah.
attack, it's again for two colorless, it does
Hmm.
40 damage. But if you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, it does 20 more damage for each card in your hand.
For each 20 more per card in hand. Okay.
So
How
I
so?
don't know if that's quite balanced, but so obviously you want to get a bigger hand to do more damage, but then your hand's big, but so's your opponent, and so now your opponent's gonna want to play cards from their hand, so you're kind of forcing your opponent to draw cards, and which is good for them.
Yeah. I think I don't know if it's going to be good enough then, is my thought. Because you need to have a really big hand, especially at 20. So maybe the multiplier needs to be
Yeah, the
bigger.
multiply could be higher. I feel like it's okay. I feel like it's better than it is right now. I don't think it's like amazing. It's certainly I think it's my weakest card.
Hmm. I
Maybe
mean,
not. It's pretty.
how big do you think your hand size is going to get to be about in
Um,
general
I don't know. I
with
was gonna say
this?
10, but that's probably not really true. Maybe around 8, which it isn't. I mean, no, 8's pretty good. You can push it to 8, but that's not
It
even always
is.
gonna happen.
But you've got to get your opponent to 8 as well.
Yeah, or you can judge and then use your ability 4 times.
But
Um,
you're getting 2, they're getting 1, right?
well, yeah, but yeah, so that'll
So if you judge and then you'll use your ability, you're no longer you have more cards than your opponent.
yeah, we can probably play like a bunch of them down. So you have to kind of build. It's not usually hard to play cards from your hand.
No,
Obviously you'll
but
have some awkwardness, but
let's say you judge let's say you use the ability twice. They're at 6 cards, or 3 times. That's probably a pretty good turn. They're at 7 cards, so you're not going to get more than, say, you're going to have 6 or 7 is the matching number, is my guess. So that's
yeah, so it's
getting
like
like
180, which isn't great. Um,
I I think you need to be able to one shot like a basic EX or V, don't you? Don't you need to get to 220, 230, at least 220 to make it viable?
Maybe. I think it's. I mean, I don't think your rosary thing was like super broken either.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair.
I think it's fine. The balancing is it could be tweaked. I think it could even be up
Mhm.
to 30 times or increase the base damage or reduce the attack cost or something like that. But um,
Yeah, no, I like the ideas. Having the ability to impact your opponent as well is good. You don't get a choice about it. I might think maybe a choice could be good, but obviously your ability is better, probably more interesting than now. And certainly in a multiplier, I was thinking you just make the 80 bigger, but having a multiplier probably makes it more interesting as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But so you also have some interesting cards. So what do you have next for us?
All right, so you have a lot of one type of Pokemon in yours, and I'm going to stick with. I went with a Grass Stage One. I'm going to go with another Grass Stage One, and this is the Amongus from Silver Tempest. It's number 12 in the. It's not the Pokédex, but whatever that number
The set
is.
number, I guess.
The set number, is that what it's called?
I think that's what I call it, I guess. I mean, it's not something I
Okay.
really refer to ever, but
No, if you see a deck list like a printed deck list, then you might need to look at it, right? To see what the card is. But
yeah.
so Amoonguss from Silver Tempest. Usually there's only one of a Pokemon from a set anyway. Sometimes there's not, and then it's an issue. It's got an ability and an attack this time. So the attack is very underwhelming, and I honestly the Pokemon's not about the attack, so I probably don't care about that. So I'll mention that first. Grass, colorless, Hypno Hammer does 50. And your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep, and that's not bad. I think the asleep effect is good, obviously, right? It gives you the chance to potentially survive. But
Yeah,
it's
but you need
here,
to get like a little luckier with it as well. But that's fine.
right? You need to. They're asleep, and then they flip on their when it goes to their turn to wake up potentially, or they can obviously evolve or switch as well.
Hmm.
But you don't really want this Pokemon in play anyway. So it's got this surprising Spores ability, which is very interesting. During your opponent's turn, if this Pokemon is discarded from your hand by an effect of an attack or ability from your opponent's Pokemon, or by an effect of your opponent's item or supporter cards, discard your opponent's hand. So it's a lot of verbiage there. But if the Pokemon's in your hand and it gets discarded during your opponent's turn by something they do, generally, that's basically what it comes down to. I'm not sure if there's ways it could get discarded from hand that aren't listed. Then they lose their hand. It gets discarded, which is obviously very powerful. Putting your opponent to a 0 card hand. We talk about how like Unfair Stamp puts them to a 2 card hand and how bad that is, or Roxanne also gets them down to 2 cards. But here to a 0 card hand, very, very powerful, but essentially impossible to trigger. There was a Pokemon or two from this set that discarded a random card from your opponent's hand. I guess that was the interaction, but essentially it's just unplayable garbage at this point because it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I think the most common way would be Hand Trimmer. There's the new Xerosic support as well, which this will
Mhm.
counter, but it's not the best.
That's
I mean,
true.
it's
Hand
pretty bad.
trimmer.
It's actually, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hand trimmer would do it because you get to choose in that case, which is to your benefit, and you choose this, of course. And obviously, but hand trimmer hasn't really seen play. So the question to me is how we need to increase it so it's easier.
Hello, are you there? Oh no,
To mo-
sorry, Uncon
what's it?
Fossil, are you there?
Yes, I am. Are you good?
Yeah. Do you pause or do you not pause?
I don't. Not really. I don't
Okay,
think
whatever.
so.
It's working. It's all good now.
All right, so you may have a little dead air on your recording. Hopefully everything's good. So I think we need to make it easier to pull this off. So there's two ways I can see approaching it, and I want to get your thoughts. One is adding mill as an option where it gets discarded from your deck, not just your hand. And that's a big change, but obviously that makes it much more likely to happen, right? Because mill's obviously a real thing. Um, and and then it could see some play right now. Is that too simple? Maybe it is, and also it goes against it. Right? It with the ability now, it has to be from hand. So I kind of would prefer to keep it from hand. So my thought is from hand. The other thing your opponent in your opponent forcing you to do something. So how about if we added shuffle into your deck, not just discard, but shuffle into deck, because that's the other thing that happens with cards. So if your opponent um, Ionos you or whatever, then they go down to a 0 card hand.
Oh,
So
okay. Wait, so how would this work? So like how exactly does this work?
in terms of the sequencing,
Yeah, because it can't put them down to a 0 card hand before the Iono, because then they just draw out
right?
of it. So it'd be like what you like. Then does it get discarded, or does it like? 'Cause you need to reveal it in some way?
Oh, right. Because with this, they discard their hand. So I would think you'd have to say they complete the action
Yeah.
that they were doing, like with the Iona or the Roxanne or whatever, like that, or the A spec, obviously, and I'm blanking the
Yeah,
name on,
unfair
which I
stamp.
mentioned before. Yeah, on Fair Stamp. They complete the action, they would draw their cards, you draw your cards, and then at the end of it, they would discard their hand, I think would be the way that would go.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense. And then would you discard Amongus or like,
Um, well, I
or does
don't
it
think
get
so.
like shuffled back into your deck still?
It shuffles back in your deck. You would have to reveal it before it gets
Okay. Wait,
shuffled into
Iono
your deck.
doesn't shuffle your deck. It just shuffles your hand.
Well, it goes into your deck, right? If it goes not shuffled it, but if it goes back into if it goes from your hand to your discard pile or your deck. How about that?
Okay,
That's what
okay, yeah.
you'd say. It
That's
doesn't have
that's
to be
interesting.
shuffled.
That's funny. That's like that'd be pretty good. Um,
It would.
that'd be
Now you
really good. That's an interesting concept. I didn't think about it because we talked about the cards we're going to talk about, but not the changes. And
right. I think that's better than the mill. I mean, the mill is probably less useful, but I like the fact that this ability is relying on it being going from your hand out of your hand
yeah,
to me. But if you wanted to, go ahead.
so I was thinking because obviously Iono like would be way worse because you have a chance for Iono to essentially cause you to not lose the game, but kind of lose the game, right? Like having no cards is really bad. Um,
Right. Right. And it's in the middle of their turn. So all of a sudden they just finished. All they can do is play whatever's on the board still.
yeah, so maybe you need barrel or you could grabber your opponent. Wait, yeah, you could grabber your opponent and grabber the Amoongus out of their hand. But that's kind of funny. That seems really powerful, but really interesting. Um,
Yeah. Is it too powerful? I'm not. It might be, right? That's a concern with that opening it up. Now, you are, the 60 slots in a deck are very valuable. So I'm not sure how often you'd put it in your deck because most of the time it's not useful. And then to have it, if you're playing and want to use it, you have to keep it in your hand. So now it's one of you're trying to grab it with like an Ultra Ball or something rather than getting some other playable card. So you have this card that's just you're staring at the whole game that you're never going to play.
yeah, it's pretty interesting with like the downside. But I think that's a really cool like thing to do because Siona's really good and kind of annoying, and then this like counters it, and it's also annoying and it fits the original theming.
Yeah, I think yeah, kind of just trying to make it better. Might be too good, but but it would make it playable and make it interesting.
Yeah. So anything else to say about that?
No, I think
Because I
that
think
covers
it's
that.
yeah, it's simple, but like a really cool change. Well, it's not simple. It's a simple change. The card is really complicated, but
In the text would actually be really tricky to get
yeah, I
worked
think
out
you'd like
properly.
actually remove the attack because it wouldn't fit. So, um,
Yeah.
but I got some. So next I want to talk about Master Ball. Master Ball is an A spec item trainer, and it's you can only play one A spec, and it's certainly not the best. And so when I
No.
was talking about the A spec, and someone commented on a video, they said like the A specs, and I'm paraphrasing here, but they said the A specs were like used to do like very unique, somewhat explosive moves that you can't like normally do, like prime catching and playing a supporter,
Hmm.
or like unfair stamping, bossing, things like that. So, um, and then even with like the other ones, like an extra 100 HP, extra 50 damage, those are big things. Giving up
Yeah.
one less prize, things like that. So Master Ball doesn't do that, right? It's pretty tame.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because it's the only. No, they added Scoop Up Cyclone now, right? So this was the
Yeah.
first of the reprint cards, but it's one at probably in the past, past formats it probably had more value because Pokemon Search wasn't as good certain times of the game. I'm not sure when this was around what the other options were, but obviously there were much generally a lot stronger A specs, and they've ignored those. Obviously, computer search and dowsing machine, two of the big ones that they just obviously don't seem to have any intention of reprinting.
Yeah. So it's a very simple A spec though, but I threw that all out the window because it's boring, right? So I
Okay.
have actually two different reworks this card. One's silly, and then one's like really broken. So which one do you want to hear first?
I mean, I'll just say what I would do because I agree it's not
Yeah.
good enough. I would just have it, and it's boring. I'm sure that this is what you're doing. I would just say you can search your deck for any two Pokemon.
Yeah, search deck for up to two Pokemon, reveal them, put them into your hand. Yeah, that would
Because
be like
then I think it would see some play, but it's still probably not the go-to A spec either.
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't you do the one that's more reasonable first?
No, neither of them are reasonable. There's the overpowered broken one, and there's the silly one.
Let's do the overpowered broken one. Save the silly one
Okay,
for
so the
last.
overpowered broken one is the more simple one, and it just says, and this is the text: you search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck.
Hmm.
There you go.
It's the same thing it says now.
No, but you put it onto your bench, so you just like grab it,
Oh,
and it can
instead
be
of
like a stage two, and so you like just
oh,
like
I see.
go
Okay, so
like
yeah, okay, so it goes on your bench. Any Pokemon can be an evolution, and of course you can't doesn't help you with any play abilities, which obviously are part of the game
no,
as well.
yeah.
Um, that one's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't
And
know exactly how broken it would be. I mean, it would probably be like you just get like turn one like Lugia, which seems kind of rough, or like turn one.
that's yeah.
I'm sure it's like broken. Even if you get like
Well,
turn
yeah,
one, your opponent gets like turn one Pidgeot EX. That's like not so good for you. Um,
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could become broken in that regard. I'm right. Obviously, your Lugia player getting the Lugia V Star into play turn one, which means that they have a
or just
decent
the
chance to get
Archeops itself as well. So you could actually get three Archeopses into play. You play Master Ball to get the one, and then you
right.
use Lugia to get the other two later on.
Right. I mean, Master Ball was played by Lugia, still a summit. I think Lugia would definitely play it, but even yeah, like any Pidgeot deck, you probably would want it. I would imagine, and such. Yeah,
Yeah, so
might
that's
be too
kind of
good.
kind of silly. Do you think that would be like? I mean, I don't know. It seems a little problematic because there have been cards like Forest of Giant Plants that let you cheat evolutions, and a lot of them have been banned, which isn't usually a good sign of good design. But I think they're fun cards. I guess Forest of Giant Plants not a fun card because it was like, oh, you can get turn one item lock every game, so that wasn't so good. But yeah, you could do
Yeah.
that. You could turn one. I mean, because you can do Salvatore, we can like turn one Bayonet EX easier. Um, trying to think of
Right. I
other.
mean, it would have to even the day it was printed, Pokemon probably has to ban it from expanded, right?
Yeah.
Immediately, I would suspect that which isn't a good.
No, yeah, that doesn't seem so good. Oh, you cut out again. Rip Discord. Are you back? No. Okay. Oh, Uncommon Fossil.
Yes, I'm back. I
There.
didn't hear you. Did
Um.
you? Were you talking?
Yeah, I cut out. So, anyways, but that's fine. I didn't say, whatever. It doesn't matter what I say. So, yeah.
So on to the second attack now.
The second Master Ball.
Your second option, yeah.
Yeah. So this one, you
Sorry,
said
it's on.
get two Pokemon, and that's kind of boring. So I decided to kick this up a little. And it says
Okay.
search your deck for exactly 15 Pokemon, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck afterwards.
15. Okay. What if you don't have 15
Well,
cards in
then you
deck? You're
can't
not
you
allowed
can't.
to play it.
Well, I don't know. I guess not.
Well, you could make it that way. I mean, that would also be interesting because now you're forced to have more Pokemon probably than you want in your deck, unless you can
Exactly.
get it early game.
Yeah. I mean, even like you never want 15 Pokemon in your hand because you obviously can't play them. So I didn't really think it through. It would be good in like United Wings and like Ancient Box, which is kind of cool.
Right. Right. With the single prize Roaring Moon, you can just get, and then you research it. Boom! Now you're just smacking away like crazy.
Yeah.
Or
So it sounds
the
balanced, right?
the right. You got the psychic was it Houndstone. What's the one that
Yeah.
again
No,
bit
yeah. That's.
from the
I don't know if
Discord
that's
and
the one you.
Wormadam,
Yeah.
those type of things too. Might like it. So, but 15, if you made it exactly 15, it'd be interesting. Or you
Yeah.
have to
That's what I
have
said. Yeah.
15.
That's what I said.
But if you have to have 15, because normally if it says 15, but you only had 14, you'd grab the 14, correct?
Yeah. But no, this is exactly 14, which isn't something that's been in the game really.
Yeah,
Um.
15. So it makes the situation for like a Dragapult Pidgeot deck or something like that. You're playing a lot of decks. You're playing in the upper teens, right? In Pokemon,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
uncommon for evolution decks. So then you're going to have to then be. You might want one or two more Pokemon. You want to go crazy, so you're going to have to then think. Do I play down this Pokemon? Because if I do, I can't use my Master Ball later in the game.
I mean, I feel like you want to use Master Ball to set up as well. Like.
You do.
So, but you need lots of Pokemon. So you're gonna have like 25 Pokemon in your deck, maybe not. And then you play this, and you get like all of them out of your deck, and then you have all these Pokemon that you can't like do. Oh, this is gonna be a bunch of like Amonguses and stuff. Like so, there's Pokemon that just sit in your hand and don't do anything because um yeah.
Right, and it's taken up so much deck space and all that you don't have other good trainers probably to make your turns work. So it seems kind of probably going to be make Master Ball worse with that move.
Yeah, but it's funnier. It's funnier.
It is funnier if you have to get like a crazy number, and obviously a few decks would like it, right? So if
Yeah,
you
and I
want
was thinking you
to,
could tone it down. I was originally had it at 10. I feel like that could actually
yeah.
be. I don't know. I mean, the balancing is kind of weird. It doesn't. It's kind of all out the window, anyways. So
I mean, yeah, right. You could reduce it down to a number that would be playable, right? Like if it was 5, it would see play, right? That
yeah,
would
it'd
be
be
a
like
good
super
card
because
then.
Hyperoma sees it just doesn't see that much play, but it sees a little play. It sees playing Gardevoir. It's not like that good in the deck. I mean, Gardevoir's a very good deck, but um, like Hyperoma is not that good of a card. But like that this would just be directly better than Hyperoma if it was 5, presumably.
Right. So it needs to be high enough that it causes trouble. So 15 might be too high, but if it's 10, I'm still not sure that people would want to play it that much, right? We don't want it to
Yeah.
be every deck plays it. So, but it's an interesting idea, a silly idea, but that's okay too.
Yeah. So I imagine your next idea isn't as silly, is it?
My next idea,
Or maybe it
what
is.
am I
Maybe
going
it
to
is.
do here? Um, I'm going to do Chimeco. Is that the way we say it
I
here?
think it's. I think
I'm
it's.
not sure.
I guess that's the way you say it here.
Chimico,
I think it's Chimeco.
Chimeco.
Yeah, it's like a wind
Okay,
chime,
that could.
right? So
Oh, chime. Oh, chime and an echo. Chime and echo put together. Okay, I
yeah.
was doing mecco like, but yeah,
I mean,
chime
what's
echo. All right,
Meko?
I like a sort for like mechanical
I
kind of
guess, but is that like I've never
like
heard someone
chime.
say Meko. I was saying like Mecha and
I,
back.
I think it's a British building toy, I believe.
Okay, I don't
Um,
think that's maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know, but
no, you're right. It's a wind chime. I wasn't paying attention to the art. So chime and echo is what's happening here. So it is a psychic Pokemon because that's what I'm all about today. But this one's a basic
wait, isn't this
70
your first
HP.
psychic Pokemon? Or your other two
Oh yeah, the
grass?
others were grass. I'm sorry. I want to fit in
Yeah.
with you,
No,
right? Because you're
I
about the
have some
psychic Pokemon.
psychics.
Sorry, you're right. I lost track there of whose cards are whose. So basic 70 HP, that's exactly the HP we want these days. We can get it with Buddy Buddy Poffin, not knocked out by uh, Dragapult EX. So the sweet spot. It's got a second attack that is terrible. I'll do that one first. It's boring. It's 2 energies, psychic, colorless, hang down does 30. So that's very underwhelming there. And maybe we need to think about that. But the first attack is what's interesting. 1 psychic energy, dreaming tone. And it's a basic, so it's easy to get in play. During your opponent's next turn, if an energy card is attached to the defending Pokemon from your hand, from your opponent's hand, their hand, that opponent will be asleep. So interesting, and it's going to sleep during their turn. So therefore they don't wake up until after they don't flip the coin until after their turn ends. So they don't wake up in their turn. So better than you putting it to sleep. But it's easy to get out of, right? Obviously, you could attach and then evolve. That's always going to be a thing. But also they
Or you
can.
could evolve and then attach it also.
That's true. Either way works with that. Also, they could switch this back and the active back and forth, or more likely they're just going to attach to something on the bench and switch into it as well. So it's too easy to get out of it, I think, to be very effective in it. So, and I assume you agree about that.
Yeah, it's kind of it's not so great.
Right. So, and obviously you could make the second attack better, but that 30 increase the 30, but that's kind of boring. So, I think the two things to do to make it more impactful, don't restrict it to the defending Pokemon. I think make it their active Pokemon. So if they attach to their active Pokemon, now they can still if they're going to switch, they could attach before they switch if they can do that, right? But they might not have that option. So just making it the active, don't let switching get them out of that situation, I think would be a plus for sure. And then I think I would like to make it not restricted to from their hand. If they have some other form of acceleration, it would go to sleep as well.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of
Right.
interesting. That's a little weird because that's not done a lot, but
Right. I mean,
okay, yeah,
obviously
no,
there's
it
a
says
lot of
sorry, it says the Wind Chime Pokemon. I just looked at it. Yeah, it says the Wind Chime Pokemon on it.
the description. Yes, you're correct. I don't. Yes, the little text underneath the picture here with its stats.
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to. Yes, I don't usually look at that, but
No, nor
obviously
do
that
I. I
it's there.
literally just noticed it, but
It's 2 feet tall and weighs 2.2 pounds as well.
yep, just like
Um,
me.
so so anyway, it needs to be more impactful, right? So it needs to. So I'm thinking not just the defense, like I said, make it the active Pokemon. I wish if they attach to the bench, that Pokemon would become asleep, but obviously they can't be asleep on the bench. So that I don't want to redo the asleep mechanic. I don't want to go that far. Um, but or you could make it that if they evolve, they stay, they don't wake up. There are certain abilities that do that, like with poison, right? That if your opponent evolves, they're still poison. I think there's a muck that does that, or did that at
Yeah.
least. I don't know if it's still in format. So it needs to be. You need to have a better chance of it happening because the second attack's garbage. So we keep the second attack garbage. You're just kind of stopping your opponent from doing something, buying a little time. That's what it's there for. Where hopefully you're setting up your bench. Hopefully this isn't the new Snorlax. I don't want it to be that good, right? Where it's not, instead of black Snorlax, everyone just plays this.
Yeah, yeah, that wouldn't be ideal, but yeah, I think that's interesting. And then there are ways around it, right? Eventually, you'll just get all enough energies in play that even if you do keep ending your turn, it's not like this attack's doing any damage or anything. So
Right.
I think that's pretty interesting because it's like a control, or not necessarily a pure control option, but an option to slow the game down while you kind of set up
hmm
behind it. It's kind of interesting. It's like a Pokemon. It's kind of cool, I think.
It's a very different attack than most attacks. That's why I think it's interesting. But it's just very underwhelming right now. So if could it become is it good enough to possibly be a consideration, say for a Gardevoir deck or any deck with psychic energy that you want to, while you're trying to get your game going, you just kind of you slow down your opponent for a turn or two, right? For any evolution type psychic deck, it could be an option for a deck like that.
Yeah, even the way it is now, it's not like terrible. I mean, as you said, there are a lot of ways to get out of it, but there are probably decks that won't be able to get out of it, or times when the deck won't be able to get out of it sometimes. So it's kind of interesting, even how it is now. But yeah, I think
So
your like
yeah,
changes are good. Or your proposed, you didn't like do any specific. Um, you didn't
probably
decide on
this.
something.
I would say the simplest change is attached to the active Pokemon instead of
Okay.
defending Pokemon. That's the simplest change, right? And it does make it a little bit more impactful.
Yeah. Um, but I got another psychic Pokemon to talk about now.
Okay, good.
Which is Haunter. Haunter is not a full final evolution. I honestly don't remember if all the other ones have been final evolutions. I mean, Match to Ball isn't, but this is Haunter from 151, and
Yeah.
151 it was an interesting set, had some weird cards, and this is probably the weirdest of them in my opinion. With its ability, well, it has an attack. It's stage one. The attack's like useless.
Yeah.
It's not useless, but it's I didn't
It's 30
really
for
recommend.
2 once again. So,
Yeah, but I did not just decide to change that attack. But it says the ability Spirit Return. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may put a supporter card from your opponent's discard pile into their hand. This is meant to synergize with the stage two, which does more for each trainer in their hand, but it's not good. The stage two is not good, so I'm just gonna ignore that, right?
okay.
This ability
Yep.
is terrible, right?
You're basically helping your opponent out, is what you're doing.
Yeah,
And they say thank you.
exactly. So I was like, this is like bad because it helps your opponent out and not you out. So I've reworked it a
Yeah.
bunch. So now it says once during your turn, you may put a supporter card from your opponent's disco pile into their hand. If you do, your opponent puts a supporter from your disco pile into your hand. And this is once you can do this every
Okay.
turn.
So it's not an on play ability
No.
also.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you choose for your opponent and your opponent chooses for you.
Yeah.
So there's that caveat. You don't get to choose the card, which would be too powerful then.
Yeah.
That
But if you
now
only have one
is
supporter in your discard, you can control it. If you have like only a few ones.
right. I mean, so if you're playing this, you're also aware of what supporters you have in your discard, and you want to try to keep it to supporters that are going to be useful in the upcoming turns. You don't want
Yeah.
those niche supporters in your discard pile.
Yeah,
It discourages that, which is interesting. So it impacts your deck building. It impacts your which is fun, which is good. It impacts your gameplay strategy. I like that. I'm not sure if every turn is too powerful.
maybe.
I
And
guess if
also,
it's
I think
on
you.
play, go ahead.
I don't think you should be able to double haunter. Maybe you should, because I didn't originally think this, but if you have niche supporters, you could say have multiple haunters, and then your opponent recovers
Hmm.
your like niche supporter, and then they recover. Then after that, they recover your good supporter because you use a second haunter. But and so I think I'd say you can only use one spirit return ability per turn.
Okay, like Crobat V or Dedenne GX, something like that.
Yeah, classic standard examples.
of
Um,
of underpowered cards that needed our
exactly.
help as
No,
well.
like Squawkabilly EX is a standard one as well. Um,
Yes, you're right. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure if it might be too good. That's my concern, but it's pretty interesting. So I do like it. That makes the card a lot. Yeah, it makes the gameplay a lot more interesting all around. And of course, you're potentially helping your opponent too. So you have to evaluate the situation too, right?
Yeah, and like your
Um,
problem is definitely helping them because supporters are like really any supporter's good generally. And yes, you could Iona them. You could like then Iona them after you get back to supporter, but that's awkward. Um, and so
right.
I think it's like pretty powerful, but also pretty weird. It could create like long games and it could create weird scenarios. Like if you're playing control, but then you keep like recovering your opponent's cards, and then like recovering your cards, that would be like horrible because it would be like go on forever because you're
Yeah,
both
or
recovering stuff.
right, or the great Tusk player that needs to keep recycling the ancient supporters, right? But you're giving your opponent cards along the way too. So,
Yeah, so
um,
it's a pretty weird dynamic, but I think it's funny and it like keeps the like helping your opponent mechanic, but isn't just like versus seeker for your opponent, which is like well, I guess you choose, um, but it's still pretty.
right.
It's not good. It's bad.
Right. Yeah. The way it's written now, it's almost guaranteed to help your opponent. If a card like Scoop Up Net was in format, I would prefer it not to be used every turn because you can recycle it enough times to make it viable without that. But the way the format is now, I guess it would have to be every turn. But I'm a little uncertain if that's too much for it. But I get the logic behind that.
Yeah, but so I think it's time to move on because you did Snorlax Doll, right? The DOLL.
Everybody's yes, DOLL Snorlax Doll from Paradox Rift, is
Yeah.
it? And I get confused. It's
Um.
PAR. Is that the right
Yeah.
one?
That's Paradox Shift,
Okay.
I think.
And an item card. Item cards. You just any trainer cards. You just need to go by the name anyway. You don't need to identify the set they're from because they're stable in that sense by the
More or
one
less. More or
name.
less.
Well, unless they get errated, right,
Yeah, and then it
or
gets. I
changed
guess
over
they're still
time.
like stable, but it's weird. Like the cards now don't do what they say, which is
Right,
weird.
but yeah, that's its own thing. Yeah, so it's a one. Well, it's an item card. It's an item card that says 120 HP. So it's unusual there. And then the text, if you're not familiar, and I don't think I played it. It's a very interesting card, but it's
Oh, you
pretty
haven't played
terrible.
it? Oh,
I don't think I have.
you're
So
missing
maybe
out.
you're.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
So if this card is in your hand when you're setting up to play, you may put it face down in the active spot or on your bench as if it were a 120 HP basic colorless Pokemon. You can do this only when you're setting up to play. So I do think that means if you took a mulligan, you could also play it to the bench when you drew from if your opponent mulliganed when you draw from mulligan, you could play it down then. So it helps a little bit with that aspect, but it's pretty unlikely to actually have it. And then anytime during your turn, you may discard it from play. So that's good. It's a 120 HP Pokemon. And then it says this card can't be affected by any special conditions and can't retreat. If this card is knocked out, your opponent can't take any prizes for it. So it's a way to just generally you put it in the active, have it sit there, and until you want to discard it from play, and then you can promote what you want. And if your opponent knocks it out, they don't get a prize. So it's just a way to kind of sit back and set up with something that can't take. It doesn't cost any. It doesn't help your opponent if they knock it out. So it makes sense in that regard. But the fact that to get into play, even if you played four of them, you're not going to get into play most of the time, I don't think, or at least not often enough to certainly to to make 4 deck slots valuable for it. And if you put like 1 or 2 in your deck, then you're definitely not going to get it and play most games. So I think it's pretty sketchy, and then it's just a dead card after that. Obviously, Battle VIP Pass was a dead card too after turn 1, but obviously it had enough upside that it saw a lot of play.
Yeah, and so there's a few things I want to say about this card.
Go ahead.
First of all, I will say I actually made my own version of this card, which I'll say real quick. I made it into a
Yep.
Pokemon, and then I had 2 abilities. One that your opponent can't take any prizes from it, and one the other ability you can't play it during your turn onto your
hmm
bench. So you could like technically Lugia it out, or like you could play it from setup or stuff like that. But that's like really like silly and niche, so not good. Um,
hmm
but then the other thing about the actual card, I played this because it allows you to actually control your mulligans, right? So you played Magic, and I played some Magic, and you can
hmm
choose to mulligan, right?
Yes, you get a choice when you see your opening hand and decide if you want to keep it or redo it. Yeah.
And then you get there's some penalty for mulliganing, but
Right.
in Pokemon normally you can't, right? But with Snorlax Doll as well as Luxray from Crown Zenith, you can actually choose to mulligan or not mulligan if you don't have any basics, but you do have Snorlax Doll and or Luxray, so it allows you to
Right.
control your opening hand, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean you have to have at least one basic of Pokemon, of course, but you now obviously Luxray you can attack with, so so that you could go with a bunch of Luxrays and potentially win a game. If you have played like 4 Snorlax dolls and just 1 or 2 other Pokemon, you're not taking any prize with Snorlax dolls. So those other Pokemon better be really good once they get going.
Yeah.
I will say that. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I mean that wasn't necessarily a good deck, right? It was more of a silly deck
Yeah,
when
no, I
you did
think
that.
it played that's the deck. I think it played it was like 8 stage 2s and like 1 basic or something like that. So it played
Yeah.
4 Snorlax Doll, 4 Luxrays, and then it was the Gardevoir with the Mirage Step Curlier. We could get your other Curliers out. So there's a
Okay.
new like Charger Bug that has that attack. Maybe I'll be running with that. That deck was so bad. It was terrible. But whatever. It was better than I thought because I'd like get set up, but it wasn't. It was still pretty bad.
Yeah. So look, I want to talk about the previous doll that rotated a little while ago, Lily's Poké Doll, which I played because it went in the Luke Metal deck, which I like to play, and that was a 30 HP, another item card that was a 30 HP Pokemon when it went into play. You could only play it. You play it as if it were a 30 HP basic colorless Pokemon. It was anytime during your turn though, so they're no, so you just play it anytime you want in the game, though. So not restricted to the start at all. And then if it's in the active spot, you can discard it from play, and you discard cards attached to it, which you weren't really attaching to. Well, you might attach a tool, maybe, but then the Pokemon actually went in the bottom of your deck, so it also helped make your deck infinite. Which I get that I think they didn't want that with the Snorlax doll, so it gets discarded from play. It doesn't go back in your deck. And once again, it couldn't retreat. And if the opponent knocked it out, they didn't take a prize. So similar 30 HP, so
It can
easy
be
to.
poisoned though. It can be poisoned. So terrible. So much worse than Snorlax
They
Doll.
could poison it and burn it, and it gets knocked out at the end of that turn. So right,
Exactly.
so
Terrible card. Terrible card.
yeah, or it could get confused, and who knows what
Exactly.
happens
And then
then.
you attack. And then you stick on your like technical machine, and then you knock yourself out.
Yeah. So, anyway, and obviously, the 30 HP helped make it a little more balanced. Because like I said, it went back into your deck, so you could a slow tanky deck like Luke Metal, you could just kind of it was a big plus in that as well. Look, Snorlax. So I get why they don't want it to go back in your deck. I think that was probably a good call. I think it's too tough to get into play though. Now they up the HP, so I guess the thought is their logic I think is 120 HP is 4 times higher than the old Lily's Poké Doll, so therefore it's okay if it's virtually impossible to get into play. I just don't think that quite works out. So I think there needs to be another way to get it in play, or you could have it have some other effect. So
You could turn up its HP. You could like make it like 5,000 HP, and then it never gets into play. So if you get in play, you like kind of win. But if you don't, then you lose. So
yes, you can make it even harder to get into play. That's your thought.
yeah, but like better. So
Make it even better, but like virtually impossible to get into
yeah, you need
play.
to like flip a bunch of coins after you get this. So yeah, and
You need to
get a bunch of
attack.
heads.
Yeah, you need to attack with a sequence of 3 other Pokemon or something without breaking the chain or something and getting
Yep.
anything knocked out. I don't. So anyway, I don't. So it could have some other effect. That's kind of the simpler way to do it. The more boring way, it could like the water. You could heal 20 from a Pokemon or something like that, right? Some use that's not great, but is okay, right? So then you could at least get some value. Some decks might want to play it, and you could try to figure out what that right balance is. I think that's kind of boring, though. I think they're making it hard to get in play. I like it, but let's loosen it up a little bit. So I think the fact that you can only do it when you're setting up makes it too tough to get in play. I think my recommendation is you can also put it in play when you set up, or if you draw it for turn, you can put it onto your bench. You could probably put it directly onto your bench, right? I think there've been cards that said that in the past, right?
Yeah, Pokemon. Top entry. Wait, no. Yeah, top entry. But there's a Metagross. I don't remember the ability name. It's a emergency entry. There we go. Oh, you draw 3 cards as well if you top deck it.
If you do that, okay. So this one I probably wouldn't draw the 3 cards because this, the fact that it doesn't give up a prize is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So I think it just needs another way to get it play. You could also do it if you take it as a prize card, it would go into play, but I think that's awfully tough to do. So I think if you top deck it, and you have ways to control it now. In the past, with like the a Rangaroo that you just put a card back, that made it probably too easy. But now you have to do something like Cypher Max code breaking on your turn and then not draw it, right? So you've used your supporter to set up your next turn, which is a significant cost to pay, right? But I think there's ways to do it, but it's not too easy to do. I think that could be balanced.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I honestly feel like the 120 HP obviously it's more than 30, but and it's much more, but like a lot of decks are still one-shotting it pretty easily. So I
Yeah,
feel like you can make it even easier. It could be like I'm not exactly sure, but like it could literally just be like you can play it whenever you want, but you can't play it if you already have one in play or something like that. There could be potentially even enough of a downside for the card. I mean, people don't want this card to be good because it's like another Snorlax. It's like it's a control card, or it's a
right.
stall card. It's not a control card. Snorlax is a control card. This is a stall card. Um, so it's like kind of boring, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you reprinted Lily's Pokédoll, kept if it came back now, it would see play. I'm pretty confident about that for
Yeah.
control decks. But if you made it so that you couldn't shuffle it back into the deck, but rather got discarded, it would probably be balanced today. Even I think.
Yeah, good, but like not absurdly good.
Right, but I think that even making it a little tougher than that, I think we need to. I think the Snorlax doll needs to be harder to get into play than any one turn. But right now, it's too hard to really be. It's basically this card and all the other cards essentially don't exist in the TCG, right? Because there's almost no deck that would ever want to play it.
Yeah, because you can't really play it. So
Yeah. All right, so that's what I have to say for that, and you don't have anything else to add, right?
no, I think it's Snorlax Doll is a weird card. We've talked about it on the podcast in the past, but yeah.
Yeah.
So now I got some other cards. So I got 2 options. You can actually choose the which one you want me to talk about first. I could do Stonejourner or Reuniclus.
Why don't we talk Stonejourner,
Okay, so
which
Stonejourner
which wants to go with my Claydol deck, but
exactly.
But
Unfortunately,
go ahead.
Stonejourner is bad. It has 2 attacks. The first one doesn't really matter. It's actually not like terrible, but it's not good. But the second attack here is Mystery Press Fighting Colorless. Colorless, you do 60. If you have no supporters in your discard pile, it does 130 more, so 190. So there's some issues with this. 190
Right.
is it's good, but it's not that much, right? There are Pokemon that do more than this.
Right. No, it needs to do because I played a Claydol deck. That's a no supporter deck that could potentially what's powered up in one turn, which is the other issue we have to get to. But 190 still isn't good enough. I'd cut it from that deck, honestly. Right. It would need to do at least 220. I
Yeah.
think.
So I changed it a little bit. Actually, I changed it a lot. So I actually I have it written down. It was 60 plus, but I just removed the 60 plus. So, for Fighting Colorless Colors, so same thing. You may shuffle a supporter card from your discard pile back into your deck. If
Okay.
you have no supporter cards in your discard pile, your opponent's active is now knocked out. So, after you shuffle the one back. So if you had 1 supporter, then you take an instant knockout, or 0 supporters, you take
Hmm.
an instant knockout.
So you don't have to shuffle the supporter into the deck.
No,
If
no.
you have no, it still works. Okay. Um, so no supporters in deck, 3 energy. Enough.
Discard. We could have 1 as well, and it recovers it.
What's that? The supporter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's 3 energy, the cost still, which is
Yes.
awkward on fighting because accelerating
It's
fighting
intended
energy
to be played with a clay doll.
it is, which of course that came out with Grant in the set, right? That was the one supporter that was kind of designed with. I believe that was
No,
the same set.
I don't think Grant was the
Oh,
same
it was
set.
not that set.
I think
Okay, I
Grant was
take
Grant's
that
earlier.
back.
Yeah, it was Astral Radiance.
So you
And
have
this
to be
was
very
someone else.
careful with your supporters, right? Because obviously you have to have a supporter, or at least you want a supporter with this then. But you can't have if you have 2 supporters in the discard pile, then the attack does nothing, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you get to shuffle back the one supporter so you can
Yeah, you
make
can
a Stone
recover
Turner?
the card.
You can recover it, which is still good because then you're setting up your next turn so you can attack with it. Another one, assuming this one probably gets knocked out.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're allowing 1 supporter. If you play Grant, you can always get that back into your hand, get that out of the discard pile. We do have the 1 supporter what draws 2, and you can put it back into your deck if you have that stadium in play, right?
Yeah, Caretaker? Is that what it is?
I don't remember. I mean, I talked about it with Clay Doll as a thing, but I tried building it, and it was just, it was drawing. It's a support that draws 2. Hop is bad at drawing 3 generally, so drawing 2 is terrible. And the stadium isn't very good either, from what I recall. I forget it was all. It was just a terrible package of cards. So, but you could do that. But you're probably going to play like a Research or an Iono, just a couple of copies in deck. But you have to be very careful. Well, and of course you can Pal Pad too. But you have to be sure you get the Pal Pad if you take the risk of putting 2 supporters in the discard pile. So I like it. I think it's interesting at that point.
Yeah, it's a weird game of chicken, but I think it's kind of funny, and it still kind of works with Clay Doll. You can use your Clay
Mm-hmm.
Doll and then play your supporter, and then you can recover the supporter, but you can't play the supporter before your Clay Doll. So it's kind of weird.
Right. So if you need the supporter to get the Clay Dolls in play, you can't then use them that turn.
Yeah.
But you could, and in fact, then you probably can't attack with a Stone Turner to get the Clay Doll out of the discard pile either. So you're in a real bind at that point.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Dipplin Thwacky, where you things can fall apart really fast, but they can be going
Mm-hmm.
really well as well. So it's a weird dynamic, but I think it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned. Is the upside too good at knocking out your opponent's Pokemon? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's too. It has to be pretty hard to keep working. Otherwise, it would be too good. So maybe it needs a damage number instead. But maybe it is hard enough to get going that's appropriate. So I like it. It's interesting. I think, and gets to be a fun little deck building exercise as well as how do you play the deck. I think would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that's all for this card though, because I'm not a
Yep.
big Clay Doll fan. So you got
No.
one last card for us, right? Or maybe 2? Is it 1?
And I have one. I just have one, and
Okay.
it's everybody's favorite supporter, Digging Duo.
My
Yeah.
favorite supporter that digs in a duo.
And it's from it doesn't matter. It's from Crown Zenith. I think it was the only copy. Yes, it is. So anyway, it does. So flip a coin. So it's good when a supporter starts with flip a coin, right? Uh, if heads, look at the bottom 8 cards of your deck. Put one of them into your hand, which is it's okay. It's not great though, is what I'd say. You're only getting one. Looking at 8's is pretty good though. That part's nice, but only one. It's so my thought is that part's okay on heads. Then if tails, you look at the bottom 3. You always look at the bottom, so it's a little gimmicky in that regard, but that's fine. If you get Iono'd, maybe you want this anyway, so you could have value in the bottom. You look at the bottom 3 and put one of them into your hand, and then you shuffle the other cards back in your deck. But looking at 3, putting one into hand is just awful, I gotta say. So I think the head is to me okay. And I think the tails is terrible because we were discussing this some before, but Hop is not generally considered very good, and I think it's a lot worse than Hop. You thought it's just a little worse than Hop, but at least with
Yeah,
with
or
Hop you get
Pneumonia or
all
Friends and because Hop's on standard, so like Friends
no
and
correct,
Paldea
yeah,
or something.
Friends and Paldea, yeah. None
I
of them
don't
have
even
the
know if
same
that's a real
ring
card.
though.
Well, I
I don't
don't know.
remember
I
that.
feel like Hao
There's
has
a
the
lot
same
of
ring as Hop.
And How in format
Oh
or no?
no, no, that was the one
That's
before How.
rotated.
But
That was older. Yeah, there's always something. There's a lot of them that draw three.
yeah, they
Supporters that
like
draw
keep
three.
doing more and more. It's kind of it's a decision.
It's there. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, when the design team just doesn't runs out of ideas, they've done all the work on the Pokemon. They're like, we need some supporters for
Oh,
these
let's see.
cards.
There's
What are we gonna do?
Barry, Sharon, friends in Galar, friends in Hisui, friends in Sinnoh. Oh, is there not a friends in Paldea? Maybe not. How,
Uh,
Hop, Pneumonia, no, Pneumonia, not Pneumonia, and Tierno. There we go.
so how many is that? Or do you don't know?
I don't know, like 6 or
That's
7.
fine. It's too many. So anyway, looking at three, drawing one, choosing one's really bad for a support is my point. So they need to either make the heads better than it is now, make the heads great, and then you could keep the tails garbage, not very good like this, right? I wouldn't mind that. So that's one way to do it. Probably the way I would do that then is let you look at the bottom eight. That's a nice number, and that's I think keep that, but put say two cards in hand. That makes it I think that's a pretty nice upside there. I think makes it viable. You could say three, but I think that's probably going too far. So you have to get two from out of eight cards. Very happy there. And if tails, you're kind of sad. But you have a big swing that way, big upside, big downside. Or you could balance it out where we keep the heads the way it is now. I think it's okay, and you make the tails better. So make the simple thing there, which is the boring way. Just make it you put all three into deck, right? So which isn't terrible, right? So you have one where you balance them out more. You do the other that's more swingy. I think the more swingy option is the more fun way to go, though.
Yeah, I feel
Look
like
at
the even your good option though, it's not really that much better than Hassle, which isn't. I mean, Hassle's not a terrible card, but it's not great.
Hassle, which does what's it? Look at
Uh,
six.
Look at the top 8. Put 3 of them into your hand, but only if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn.
That's true. So maybe we need to put three in hand then, because
Yeah,
Hassle. I mean, I have seen people play it sometimes. I have to read the card, but I've seen it played some recently in games.
yeah, certainly a solid supporter. Um,
So maybe Digging Duo. Maybe you put three. I think four is too much. I think that's. I don't think I go that far, and I don't think I want to look at more than eight because I think eight's a pretty generous number.
yeah, I think it is. So I think that could be interesting. A bit like more. I mean, just a bit better because it's truly not good. It's not like the worst card in the game, but it's not good.
Yes, I'm looking at my notes here. My note, what I wrote down was choose three of the eight. That was my thought beforehand when I was going over it. So makes it, a consideration. It probably still doesn't get much play, but that's okay. But at least it's not just kind of trash that you just overlook at that point.
Yeah. But now I think onto my last card because I assume that's all you got
Yes,
for now. So
yes,
this is Reuniclus from Temple of Forces, I think.
yes.
And it has an attack. Well, it has 2 attacks. Second attack, Brain Shake,
Hmm.
Psychic Colorless, 100 Confusion, whatever. You're also stage 2 to retreat, and you have 120 HP, which isn't the highest HP on the stage 2. It's kind of not
Are
so
there any
great.
stage twos with less than that?
Well, the other Reunicluses, I have all cards pulled up, so the other Reuniclus only have
Okay.
90. Let me see. In standard, um, I feel like there must be something like less, but I can't
Okay,
think of.
but there's not much anyway, right? It's obviously 120 is crazy low for a stage two.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty. Oh, there's an Orbeetle with 110, and there is
Okay.
scrolling because I want to know. There's the Gengar with 120 because 120 is not like just Jump Bluff as well. Jump Bluff always has low HP, so
Okay.
there's a Jump Bluff in standard. But anyway, so Reuniclus here
Keep going. Yep.
with um with Summoning Gate, look at the top 8 cards of your deck for 1 colorless. You may put any number of Pokemon you find there onto your bench. Shuffle the other
Hmm.
cards back into your deck.
Yeah, and it's colorless, so you can pair it with any other. It doesn't have to be a psychic deck either. So you can have any type of deck in terms of type that you want to try to make it a go with. So honestly, it's not a horrible thing right now. You just have to overload your deck with Pokemon, which makes your deck awkward.
Yeah, so and obviously it's like a setup Pokemon, so you can really or a toolbox style Pokemon as well, so you can do a
Yeah.
lot of different options. And so I like toolbox style decks. You like toolbox style decks, right?
Yep.
And so I like Mewtwo and Mew, right? I know,
Everybody's, yeah.
showing my age here, but
A very underpowered Pokemon there for
exactly,
sure.
exactly. No, Mewtwo and Mew, very good card. It copied Pokemon. So you might know where this is going. Uniclus, I decided it's too bad, or it's too good, right? So it needs to be two colorless. I originally had it
Okay.
at one colorless, but I think two colors will be more balanced.
hmm
Look at the top
Which
eight
is a
cards.
which is a double turbo, which obviously you can still play, but it's harder to get it into hand.
Yeah, and there are lots of other ways as well. You can reversal, you can do other things.
Yep.
But you look at the top eight cards of your deck. You may discard a Pokemon you find there and choose an attack from that Pokemon. Oh, I didn't finish. Choose an attack from the Pokemon and use it as this attack. Um, or
Huh.
use that attack.
Okay.
I didn't actually write it down. And then shuffle the other cards back. So you copy an attack, and it can be anything. You can go and Dialga V-Star your opponent with Summoning Gate for
hmm
2 energy on a stage 2. And then next turn you can go in and Palafin EX your opponent for do 250. Something like that.
So this will be the new way to play Palafin.
Exactly. The only way, because it doesn't work right now. It kind of works. I don't think it works. I don't think it fully works. I think it like works
Yeah,
better.
I
But
tried it some, and I got like 3-4 games in a row where it all worked, but
yeah.
doesn't guarantee anything. It's interesting. I mean, you're taking it and making it super unpredictable, right? Because I mean, unless you play like what Cyphermaniac's Code Breaking, you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, so it's like
Um,
this box of like chocolates, I guess.
of stuff.
Of stuff, exactly. So you have all this Pokemon, and then I don't even know if that'd be good enough, but I think it's like kind of interesting. So
I
yeah.
I think it probably needs to be one colorless. I don't think you want to make it. I need to get two energies on it.
Okay, I could
I
do
don't
one
think
colorless. That's why I
because
originally
I'm
had
still
this, and I think that's more interesting. I mean, it's better,
except
obviously.
I'm trying to think what it does because now you're getting Pokemon in the discard pile, so you want a deck that wants that as well, right? But it's a stage 2, so it's not like you're going to use it in the United Wings deck or anything like that.
No,
Because
I mean it's not like you're getting that much value discarding it anyway. It's just like I don't know. You
no,
could just reveal it and shuffle it back in. I didn't decide on that. Um,
well, because I'm wondering if you discard it, could then it go in Regidrago V Star?
but
You see,
Regidrago's like not a stage 2 and much more expensive. So
no, I get it, but but at least then it has some synergy, right? I can attach it one energy, which I think we would need, and then I get a Pokemon in the discard pile that then I can use my Regidragos with later on. But yes, I have to try to evolve into this, so it needs to be, I guess, with a stage 2 deck to have a deck that already wants rare candies to make it work. I'm trying to think, is there a deck that would actually want this?
well, I
And
think you
I'm
build it
right
as
now.
its own deck, so you can do it. And so as I said, you can like Dialga V Star, and then you can go in with you can V Star power Dialga, then you can go in next turn with back to back
Mhm.
turns and do like um you can do an expand, and then you'll Dialga GX. No, you'll Metacham, and then you'll Dialga V Star, and then you'll Metacham again, and then you'll Dialga GX, and then you'll Metacham again, and then you'll like attack with something else, right? So there we go.
I'm wondering if I need to make the card better than what you're saying. I gotta say, because I'm underwhelmed by it, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
I mean, I
missing
feel
how
like
great
there are a
it
lot
is.
of like powerful, like Dragapult EX is like really good, right? But if you could just use it
It
for one
it,
energy,
it is. But even if you want a Dragon Ball DX, at most you can have 4 copies, so you're not going to hit it most of the time. Unless you can really shape, you got to really shape your what's in your deck. You need a lot of discard then in this deck to try to get your deck down to the set of cards you want, right?
yeah.
Which works, you know. It's interesting. I'm it's interesting is where I'll say with it. So
Okay.
I'm not and plus it's the stage 2, so I'm not going to set up even by turn 2 most of the time, right? With this. So what am I doing in the meantime? I'm just
Well, I feel like a
getting my
stage 2 turn 2 is not that hard to do.
well, what's the engine? What am I
You
using to
could do
get the
like Pidgeot. I
pieces?
mean, like one energy stage 2, like Dragapult sees playing, it's pretty good, and that's 2 energies on stage 2. So if
Oh,
this is one energy,
I think I'd rather know I could have Dragapult than this Uniclus, which I don't know what I'm attacking with. Plus, Dragapult's not getting knocked out every turn.
that's true. But you could Dialga into Dragapult, Dialga V Star into Dragapult.
See, because I'm having to rare candy every turn now, right? That's a problem too.
That is an issue. But
And if I have Pidgeot EX in the deck, which you might need, now I can only get 3 Reuniclus in play over the course of the game, and that's probably not going to be good for me.
That's true. It's fine. It's fine.
It's all good.
Broken card. Um,
You need to have the stage 1 then be like Drakeloak, where it has some value, right? Where you're chucking Drakelokes in play. Of course, now we're taking a lot of deck space, and we need a lot of attacking Pokemon, so we're fighting ourselves too. So I'm skeptical about this one.
Maybe I got an idea. Let's like play each other with these cards at some point, like the PCG Sim or something. That's our future video idea. Not a podcast, but
for a video, we could test them out this way. Perhaps I'm not sure I'm committed to that, but I'll take it under advisement is what I'll say.
Okay. Anyways, I think that's all for today's podcast. We obviously changed the world for the better as always. But yeah, check out us at Uncommon Fossil on YouTube, 10 Types on YouTube, and you can listen to us on any podcasting platform. Or Uncommon Fossil, the podcasting platforms, right? I don't know what they are. I mean, I know this on Spotify and like
Spotify, Anchor. I'm trying to forget. It's changed around,
right?
Yeah, Apple. I think Google has something. I think, and I honestly don't remember.
It should be on whatever you're listening to. If it's not,
yes,
and it should be under Reasonably Effective. So you should. I don't know how easy they are to search, but yeah. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed though, and we're excited to see you next time.
Take care.